There are moments in global politics when you don't need a declaration of war to know something is wrong. You feel it instead. You sense it in the silence between official statements, in the way navies move without making noise, in the way oil markets flinch before a single missile is fired. And right now, the sea is talking back. While most of the world is distracted, scrolling, arguing, surviving, the Strait of Hormuz has quietly become the most dangerous chessboard on Earth. Not tomorrow, not if tensions rise, right now. Let's start with what happened. Then we'll talk about why it matters far more than it looks. Late this week, Iran announced 2 days of live-fire naval drills in the Strait of Hormuz. Not simulations, not exercises on paper. Live fire, real weapons, real consequences.
We're getting you the breaking news that's coming in. Iran's Revolutionary Guard naval forces will carry out live-fire exercises in the Strait of Hormuz on the 1st and the 2nd of February. The Strait, remember, is the world's most vital oil export route that connects the biggest Gulf oil producers like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, and the UAE with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea.
This is the narrow waterway where about 20% of the world's oil supply passes through. 1 in every 5 barrels fueling planes, factories, cars, and entire economies. And Iran chose that place, that moment, because almost at the same time, President Donald Trump sent a massive U.S. naval armada into the region, led by the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, 2 heavyweight boxers stepping into the ring, while pretending it's just warm-ups. Now officially, everyone is being polite. U.S. Central Command released a carefully worded statement acknowledging Iran's right to operate professionally in international waters, while warning that any unsafe behavior could cause escalation. Translation: we see you, don't get cute. Iran, on its part, issued notices to mariners, basically a global group text saying, hey, just so you know, bullets will be flying here on Sunday and Monday. The coordinates Iran provided, they cut straight into the traffic separation scheme. The maritime highway where ships enter and exit the Persian Gulf. Picture a 2-lane express road for oil tankers worth hundreds of millions of dollars each. Now imagine someone announcing live fire practice on the shoulder. And sometimes the road itself, that northern lane, it sits inside Iran's drill zone. Iran didn't need to fire a single shot to send a message. But here's where the story takes a turn, and not a small one. Because while the world was focused on Iran and the US staring each other down in the Persian Gulf, China, Russia, and Iran were quietly coordinating naval operations thousands of miles away. South Africa. Yes, South Africa. In waters near Simonstown Naval Base, warships from China, Russia, and Iran gathered for a joint naval exercise named Will for Peace 2026. That name alone deserves a slow clap, because nothing says peace like 3 geopolitical rivals of the United States running coordinated drills across key global waterways at the same time. This wasn't symbolic. This wasn't a courtesy visit. Iranian naval vessels were photographed near Simonstown. Russian corvettes and fleet oilers sailed into False Bay. Chinese guided missile destroyers joined the formation. Different flags, different oceans, one coordinated signal. And the official explanation? Maritime safety, anti-piracy, protecting shipping lanes. Sure, that's like 3 heavyweight fighters meeting in a gym just to stretch. Let's pause here and really understand the geometry of what's happening. On one side of the world, Iran is flexing control over the Strait of Hormuz, the world's oil chokehold. On the other side, China and Russia are synchronizing naval presence along routes connecting Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. This isn't random, it's positioning, because the Strait of Hormuz isn't just narrow, it's fragile. At its tightest point, it's only 33 kilometers wide. That's about the distance of a long morning commute. Yet through that space flows roughly 20% of global oil consumption. About 1/3 of all oil traded by sea, nearly 40% of India's crude imports. Yes, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have some pipelines that bypass the strait, but most of the region doesn't. If Hormuz sneezes, the global economy catches pneumonia, and this is why the USS Abraham Lincoln strike group is now sitting in the Arabian Sea like a heavyweight bodyguard who knows things could get ugly fast. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Aircraft carriers are powerful, but they're also predictable. And Iran knows this better than almost anyone. Which brings us to the real danger, the part that never makes headlines until it's too late. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, or IRGCN. This is not a traditional navy obsessed with big ships and flashy parades. This is a force built on asymmetry, speed, numbers, chaos. The IRGC operates over 1,000 small attack boats, many with crews of just 3 people. Light, fast, hard to to track, armed with machine guns, rockets, and grenade launchers. Their strategy isn't to fight the U.S. Navy ship for ship, it's to overwhelm, swarm tactics. Instead of attacking head-on, Iran's updated doctrine calls for 20 or more boats attacking from multiple directions simultaneously. Low radar signature, high speed, confusion everywhere. And this isn't theory. Back in 2002, the U.S. military ran a war game simulating this exact scenario. The result? In less than 10 minutes, the simulation showed the U.S. Navy losing an aircraft carrier, multiple cruisers, amphibious assault ships, 16 warships total. The exercise was so alarming, it was quietly shut down. Now imagine this reality layered onto a narrow waterway filled with oil tankers, commercial ships, fishing boats, and civilian crews who didn't sign up to be human shields. Even without firing a shot, harassment alone can shut the strait down. Insurance companies panic, shipping firms reroute, oil prices spike, no declaration of war required, and history backs this up. In the year 2000, the USS Cole was attacked while anchored in Yemen by a small speedboat packed with explosives. 17 U.S. sailors were killed. A modern warship nearly sank by a boat smaller than a city bus. That lesson never left naval planners, and it certainly never left Iran. Now zoom out again, because the sea story doesn't end in the Gulf. China has quietly sent escort task forces into the Gulf of Aden. Iran has dispatched flotillas toward Africa, some for drills, others to escort commercial shipping. Russia's Baltic fleet ships sailed all the way from Europe, shadowed by NATO vessels the entire time. Every movement watched, every movement calculated. This is no longer about Iran versus the US, it's about alignment. Iran understands something clearly. Diplomacy with Washington under maximum pressure is unlikely, so it's preparing for the alternative. And that alternative doesn't involve standing alone. China's Ministry of Defense said it plainly, this exercise is about deepening military trust and pragmatic cooperation. In simpler words, we've got each other's backs. The Strait of Hormuz, when viewed from space, looks like a bend, a narrow turn between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. For thousands of years, it's carried silk, ivory, ceramics, textiles. Now it carries oil, and with it, global stability. The problem? That bend has become a pressure point, and pressure points don't announce when they're about to break. They just do. By now, one thing should be very clear. This is no longer a drill-heavy headline that fades by next week. This is a live situation where every movement at sea is already costing real money and edging the world closer to a moment nobody actually wants. We've seen this movie before. When Israel launched its 12-day war against Iran in June, even rumors of disruption in the Strait of Hormuz sent energy prices jumping. Not missiles, not blockades, just fear. Markets panicked. Insurance premiums surged, shipping firms quietly rewrote routes. Now imagine that same fear multiplied. Iran has openly warned it could launch preemptive strikes or target American interests across the Middle East and Israel. This isn't talk meant for Twitter. It's signaling, the kind militaries understand instantly, and the world noticed. Financial markets are watching this corridor like a hawk with anxiety issues. Any serious incident in the Strait of Hormuz wouldn't take days to hit oil prices. It would take hours. Tankers are already paying higher insurance rates just to pass through. Some shipping companies are considering alternative routes that cost millions more per voyage, which tells you something important. The crisis is already happening, just quietly. But here's where the story expands beyond Iran and the US, because the reaction hasn't been uniform. In South Africa, cracks have appeared inside government and parliament. The Democratic Alliance Party openly criticized the Will for Peace 2026 naval drills, demanding a full parliamentary briefing and questioning why South Africa is hosting warships from Russia and Iran, both heavily sanctioned and involved in active conflicts. Their argument is blunt. South Africa joined BRICS for economic reasons, not to undermine the international rules-based order or host what they describe as weaponized antagonism disguised as cooperation. That's political language, but behind it is real concern, because this drill isn't just symbolic. It involves navies from the 11-nation BRICS group, which President Trump has openly labeled anti-American. And then came another escalation, quieter, but far more dangerous. Iran announced it had added 1,000 new strategic drones to its forces, one-way attack drones, reconnaissance systems, cyber-capable platforms designed to strike land, air, and sea targets, fixed or moving. Iran's army commander said the upgrades are proportionate to the threats facing us. while also insisting Iran is pursuing diplomacy. That contradiction isn't accidental, it's leverage. Iran is speaking in two languages at once: diplomatic language for allies and mediators, military language for Washington. Meanwhile, the Pentagon is doing what it always does in moments like this: watching everything. The USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group isn't just floating around. Defensive postures are being coordinated down to the smallest detail. Intelligence agencies are tracking Iranian fast attack craft movements, monitoring Chinese and Russian naval positioning across multiple theaters, and analyzing coordination protocols emerging from the BRICS exercises. This is what modern warfare preparation looks like: satellites, algorithms, probability models, and the math isn't comforting. Defense analysts studying historical precedents are coming to an uncomfortable conclusion. There are very few moments since World War II where American naval forces faced a truly coordinated, multi-nation maritime challenge. Not asymmetric harassment from one side, not peer competition in one region, but three distinct threat profiles converging at once. Think about it. Iran brings swarm tactics, hundreds of fast boats, drones, and harassment operations that can paralyze a waterway without declaring war. China brings advanced anti-ship missiles, long-range naval coordination, and logistics reach. Russia brings submarine warfare experience and hybrid tactics perfected in gray zones. Each one alone is manageable. Together, that's a threat matrix no single carrier strike group was designed to counter. This is why analysts are calling it an encirclement scenario, not a siege yet, but pressure from multiple angles. And all of this is unfolding while unrest inside Iran continues. Since protests began in late December, estimates of civilians and protesters killed range anywhere from 6,000 to over 30,000. That internal pressure matters because governments under stress don't always behave predictably, which brings us to President Trump. Trump has escalated his rhetoric sharply, warning of military action if Iran refuses to negotiate a new nuclear deal. He's openly described an armada heading toward Iran and promised any response would surpass last year's strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. At the same time, U.S. forces are conducting multi-day air exercises across the Middle East, sharpening rapid deployment and combat readiness alongside allies. So here we are, a narrow waterway where around 100 merchant ships pass daily, oil markets on edge, insurance companies sweating, navies posturing, allies hedging, and not one actor in this story actually wants a full-scale war. That's the irony. Iran doesn't want regime collapse. The US doesn't want another Middle East war. China doesn't want global trade disrupted. Russia doesn't want open confrontation with NATO. Yet the system they're operating inside, threats, alliances, pride, deterrence, keeps pushing everyone closer to the edge. This is how accidents happen, not because someone wants catastrophe, but because nobody can afford to blink. As we speak, satellites are watching Iranian bases for signs of mass mobilization. Chinese destroyer movements are being tracked for positioning near reinforcement routes. Russian submarine activity in the Indian Ocean is under constant surveillance. And in the Strait of Hormuz, over 1,000 Revolutionary Guard fast attack boats are practicing swarm tactics, while live fire drills echo across one of the world's most important trade arteries. This isn't theater anymore, this is rehearsal. Whether it stays that way depends on choices being made in rooms we'll never see, by people who know one miscalculation could ignite the largest naval confrontation since 1945. So the real question isn't who's stronger, it's who miscalculates first. This moment matters, not just for geopolitics, but for everyday life. Fuel prices, food costs, global stability, all of it flows through this narrow stretch of water most people will never see. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think this is strategic posturing, or the early stages of something much bigger? Can diplomacy still pull this back? Or has the sea already chosen its direction? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Support this work by liking the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next, because this story is far from over.